What is up, Maniacs? Happy Monday. Welcome back to WMMA Mania. This is episode 18. I'm your host, as always, Drake Riggs, here to provide you all the weekly happenings in the world of mixed martial arts when it comes to the ladies specifically. Thank you so much for tuning in, as always, and hopefully, of course, visiting MMAmania.com, where you can find all your MMA needs overall in the world of mixed martial arts and sometimes some other crazy things, because there's always a lot going on. So while you're here, though, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, give us a like and subscribe if subscribable, so YouTube specifically. And if you're on Twitter, head on over to one of the other platforms if you want to interact in the chat, preferably YouTube. And yeah, do all those things. Share, hit the notification bell. Helps us oh so much. Just a click and a clack here and there. Greatly appreciated. But as for today and what is on the lineup, as you can see there in the picture, the cover photo, we'll be talking about Bellator 282, which went down this past Friday. There was also UFC Vegas 57, just one fight there, opened the show the Saturday, the day after. Then some news, of course, a good amount of news, some shuffling. And then we have three events to preview here at the very end, coming up this week and weekend, I should say. Kicking things off with the 2022 PFL 6, featuring the women's lightweights. That'll be on Friday in Atlanta, Georgia. Day after that, we have International Fight Week coming to a close with UFC 276. And how kind of fitting is it that it is International Fight Week, and we also have RIZIN 36. I don't know how often, if ever, there's been a RIZIN event during International Fight Week, but that is quite fitting. That is a great capstone, I would say. Very much love that is going down. It's felt like a while since RIZIN 35, which was a great event. And we have two fights on that card at super atomweight, of course. One very big one, as you can see, again, on the cover, and then another fun one between some prospects of sorts, at least one for sure, but we'll get into that at the end of the show. So how is everybody doing? Let's check the comments here. And I do want to clarify right away, because I did see Jimmy, I believe it was Jimmy last week, left a comment right as we came to a close, and he was mentioning, because I mentioned Brought in Horizon. Spoiler alert, Brought in Horizon episode 16, get the plug out of the way. That is dropping later today. Get ready for that. Good one there. We got three of the fighters from RIZIN 36. Mori Suda, Hiroki Suzuki, and Ji Yang Yang in the main event there, and then Kurumi Khan. So very good stuff. But I wanted to clarify. I must have said 6 last week, and Jimmy was like, I thought there was more than that. Yes, there's 16. Sometimes my words only come out halfway, so get that plug out of the way right away. But yes, look forward to Brought in Horizon episode 16 coming later today at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. So yeah, as I adjust some things here really quickly. Rue says, why is Drake Riggs the best? Because he's wholesome and great. Well, that is too kind. What a great way to start the Monday, Rue. Appreciate you. Good to see you. Jin says, what's up, Drake? The best WMA channel and show on YouTube. All the rest are not worth watching because of their lack of knowledge and lack of respect. My goodness, coming out hot, you guys. I appreciate it greatly. You said it, not me. Centro is here. Says, Drake, the king of BTL. Goddamn right. I just went on BTL last week to make Jed lose. Fair enough. Guy can't get a win to save his life. It has probably been like a month and a half since he's won. Just shameful, really. He's gonna catch up on his record to having the same amount of wins as losses. Just pathetic, really. Makoto, good to see you. Hello, Drake. Love the channel and the notification button. It is a good one, you guys. There you go. Makoto telling you it is worth it. And it's not like we spam you too much here on the channel. We have weekly content, but not in an overabundance. I think it's just the right amount, with the interviews and all the live stuff and whatnot that I'm providing for you here. So take their word for it, not mine. Thank you, guys. Salvin is here, of course, our Prince of Positivity. Happy Monday, WMA Mania and Mr. Riggs. We have such a fantastic fight cards where fighters bring skills and determination to showcase the hard work they put into camps. Thank you to all the fighters. Indeed. Good action lately. And Jimmy is here, as I mentioned, says, quick question off the bat, Drake. I read your article recapping Esparza's comments on Mania, is probably where I did that. I noticed the hate surrounding it. Will you be rooting for Esparza to beat Whaley because of the hate? No, No. You guys know I'm a Whaley fan. She's been one of my favorites since I first found out about her. And quite honestly, I've never really been much of a Carla fan. It was very easy to dislike her on the Ultimate Fighter 20. So I guess we'll leave it at that. And I do love me a good wrestler, of course, similar to Steve. But no, I've never been a Carla fan per se. And, my personal experiences with her have not been the best, not terrible, but, is what it is. No, she is definitely, it is flip-flopped big time. It's so crazy when you look at like the aftermath of the Rose and Carla fight. I feel like it's very much on Carla's side in that one, even though it was still a terrible fight. And now it's completely reversed. And obviously she hasn't done herself any favors with some of her comments. But at the same time, I see no problem with her comments at the same time. So, I'm definitely Team Whaley here, and we'll be rooting for her. And I think she will win, of course. But I just try to keep things real with everybody, and I'm gonna call it how it is. So I've seen nothing wrong with Carla's comments. She is literally the champ. Whatever. We can get into that more, but yeah, you guys know I keep it real. Ghost says best show in MMA, not just MMA, the women, but MMA period. Oh, that is too kind, Ghost. You are the man. Appreciate it. James says, hi, Drake. Will Jillian get to fight Del Boney? I mean, good question here to kind of kick things off, James. From what I've heard, it seems like it's leaning that way, but it's hard to tell. I don't really know who. I can't think of someone that would maybe be more deserving at the exact moment. And off the top of my head, I know that Jillian, that win got her. It's just a one fight win streak, right? You can't call one fight a win streak, but it's a great win and over Lindsey Van Zandt that way. I don't know. I'd have to look kind of more at the options, but I think she's a pretty good one there. Would be a fun fight either way. Rain says, good to see the best journo in the biz. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, we don't need to slander other people, but I appreciate the compliment, Rain, and free to have your opinions. But yes, I don't want to spread that part. Sammy, good to see you. Hello, Drake. Love the show. Appreciate you so much. Jumbo is here. James says, I hope Jillian wins because she's a friend of the show and goes to the breakdown for a while she was on. Yes, yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think that's a great matchup. Would be a fun one. Not an easy fight for Jillian, though. Obviously, Del Boney's a champ for a reason. But all right, with all that in mind, feel free, you guys, if you're new or, of course, familiar faces, you can always chime in at any point during the show, and I will get to them the best I can in this hour and 30-minute window maximum. But we're going to get to Bellator at 282 now, which was quite an interesting card. A lot of upsets this past weekend, whether it was with PFL or Bellator. And I suppose UFC as well had some. But we're going to start off with, this wasn't an upset. This was actually one of the most effortless performances I've seen in a while, from Kat Zingano defeating Pam Sorensen via unanimous decision, 29-26, 29-27, and 29-27. Kat had a point deducted in round 2. I believe it was round 2, if I'm remembering correctly. So that is why there's the 29 there. But this was one-way traffic. Very, very much surprising to me that it was this easy for Kat. And I mean, look at these fucking numbers, are pretty insane. The total strikes, 184-23. I mean, the whole story of this fight, though, essentially was, as you can see there, the takedowns, 4 of 7. Pam had no answers whatsoever for Kat's wrestling. It was just incredibly easy for her to get her down. And then she kept her down pretty easily as well. So, and that was a one-legged Kat Zingano as well. She said that she thinks the injury happened on a second knee, not the illegal one, but a knee after that, apparently. And we saw she could not really walk after the fight. But complete dominance, wasn't very competitive. And looks like she has a title shot waiting for her. But man, I mean, depending on how bad her knee is hurt, unless it was just a kind of thing in the moment or will be a nagging injury, I feel like I'm kind of over it. I'm over the idea of Cat fighting Cyborg. I don't think it'll go very well for her. Never really did, of course, but only one way to find out as well. But the wear and tear is catching up. She's about to be 40 in what, a couple weeks. She's had a lot of injuries throughout her career. Don't know if that's the same knee that she had the ACL tear on way back in the day. The point is, I think that's a pretty great win for Kat to call it a career off of. Doesn't it all sound like she's going to do that? But man, is what it is. So, I mean, great win though for Kat. Very effortless, as I said. So good job to her. Congratulations are in order. And James says, Kat looked very good in this fight. Doesn't she usually start slow and then do something spectacular? She was dominant throughout. That is a great point. I might, I don't know if I'd say Kat's a slow starter. Not really. Kind of her problem has been starting too quickly, which is literally what cost her against Ronda. And you watch the Misha fight. She came out very hot against Misha too. And then kind of lost that first round for sure. And somewhat of a comeback that fight. It was pretty competitive, but I think Kat's problem has been kind of starting too fast. I mean, I guess you could say it's changed a little bit as her career's gone on, but early on, that was not the case at all. She was not a slow starter, but yeah, this was a very even pace throughout, I would say. Mary's here. Good to see you. She says, hello, Drake. Do you have access to Migu Mobile, the Chinese video platform for the UFC? Because I'd like to hear what you think of some of the comments Whaley said. So I think I looked for like on my Android marketplace recently, but I don't remember finding anything. So if you guys could tell me like where I could get onto it, then or how, like I'm definitely down to try and find it. But yeah, I've had no luck getting onto Migu before, Mary. So yeah. As Ghost says, do you think Zingano's wrestling will elongate her career? I mean, it very well could if we're to go off of this performance, because again, it was incredibly easy for her to take down Pam. It was as if she had never wrestled before. And she did that with one knee in the second half of the fight. So, and she took no damage. Kat took no damage aside from the knee injury, which she did to herself. But her opponents in all of her Bellator fights have really not hurt her whatsoever. So you could be onto something there, Ghost. I wouldn't be surprised. As he says, you got to love Kat Zingano. She usually gets beat up, then comes back and does something really cool. Yeah, that is typically the case, and that is the definition of the Nunes fight for sure. And Jin says, who should be next for Kat? Well, again, like I said, it's going to be Cyborg whenever Kat is ready, unless Cyborg ends up leaving the UFC, not the UFC, she already did that. If she leaves Bellator, which sounds like could be possible with the summer coming up and her contract running out and what have you. But if not Cyborg, then you would have to think Blanco, which that's a very tough fight as well. And Rue says, is Zingano an all-time great? No. Love Kat. I really do. Her story is incredible. And she has one of the best documentaries that I've ever seen. Cried watching that. But no, I wouldn't all say Kat is an all-time great. She's just been very, very inactive throughout her career. Like you look at it, I think, I don't have it up right now, but she's only fought twice in a year in like 1 or 2 years of her entire, nearly 10 fight career. So yeah. And Rue says, but she beat Nunes. Yeah, but that was before Nunes, went on to do everything she did. So kind of timing is important there, I think. And so, yeah, gotta look at that when things happened, I would say. So, but yes, again, congrats to Kat regardless. As we move along to the flyweight fight, which this went about as I expected. And we did talk about how it would go down last week. Ilara Joanny, however they pronounce it, defeated Alejandra Lara via unanimous decision, 30-26, 29-27, 29-27. There was also a point taken away in this one for an up kick to a downed Joanny. So both of these fights had point deductions, which you love to see that, honestly. If there's a foul, take a goddamn point. What are we doing, ref? So that was nice to see in both of those fights. But essentially, this fight, as mentioned last week, and similar to the last one, came down to the takedowns and the wrestling, which we know Alejandra Lara has just very poor grappling defense, and she needs desperately to work on that, because at the end of, the first round, she was unloading on Joanne against the cage and nearly put her away. It was too wild. I mean, if it was more honed in, if she wasn't as wild with that onslaught, she probably would have finished her. She was cracking Joanne, and you kind of knew that that was capable. And I mean, they both were throwing very hard. There were some very fun exchanges in this fight on the feet, but the X factor was always going to be Ilara's grappling, because Lara just struggles there, and it's got some good hip tosses, a little bit of judo action from Joanne, and was able to control on the ground. So yeah, it's still a big issue for Lara. I think that's 3 in a row for her now. She's lost. We know how to beat her. We know how to beat her, and then on the feet, she can do some serious damage. But I think got just a little too crazy in this one, and it cost her. So no surprise there. But yeah, Joanne's looking like an interesting contender there in the flyweight division. As Mary says, so one of the points Weili made was the date she mentioned was just to let the UFC know that she's ready to go as soon as October, of course. Mary says, and she learned from Chael Sonnen that mentioning a date gets the public interested. Hey, it's a smart move. Put something down and get people thinking about it, I suppose. And she says she also said it's still up to Carla when she wants to fight, even though Weili herself didn't have a choice when she was champion. Well, I mean, realistically, neither of them have a choice, Mary, but they have preferences, of course. So the UFC is going to do whatever they want to do. So goes to shout out to Ilara Joanne. Spoke to Capitan about her, and he said she was improving. Yeah, she looked very good in this fight. Outside of that flurry that she got caught with, but hung in there and was able to pull it off. So congrats to her indeed. Very much looking forward to what is next for, what is it? Arya Stark. That's her nickname. Game of Thrones, if anybody watches that, which I'm sure some of you definitely have. But that was Bellator 282. Good fun stuff there. And it's funny, like, I don't know why it stuck out to me, but sometimes it just kind of hits you where you look at the Bellator cage, you're like, God damn, that thing is so big. And especially having seen it in person, the Bellator cage is just so massive. I'm very curious to know like how much bigger it is than the UFC's big cage, because they have the small one in the Apex, but it's huge, man. The Bellator cages are huge, and I think it even used to be bigger. So Mary said, so is what Weili said pretty fair? The Chael Sonnen thing surprised me. Yeah, no, I think so. It's again, it's calling a shot and capitalizing on an opportunity where everybody's watching, right? Like that was Chael's big thing, was don't waste the moment when all the eyes are on you. Let it be known what is next, or what you want it to be next, right? So yeah, I mean, that's kind of funny that Weili got that from Chael. I think that's kind of funny, kind of cool, but hey, that's smart of her, because Chael obviously is very good at fight promotion and getting public interested. So, and Jen asks for Ghost and Drake, do you think the circular cage is harder to cut than the octagon? I don't think it matters too much, but I would think less corners make it easier in theory, in my mind. But again, I've never been in either of those, so I think Ghost would probably have a better answer. But when I think about it, less corners, I would think, makes it easier. That seems right to me. And Mary said, Weili said that she watches Chael's show to learn English. That's hilarious and amazing. That is very funny. I like that. We need to get them get Weili on Chael's show or something. That'd be fun. Have her do Submission Underground. That'd be awesome. And then she'd be in Oregon, and I could go interview her in person. Wonder when the next show will be. It's been a while since the last Sug. So we used to talk about that on WMA Today, me and Steve, but there hasn't been a show all year, I don't think. So hopefully things are good there, and might have something to do with Chael's legal battle, but we won't get into that. So let's talk about UFC Vegas 57. Just one fight. Opened the show, as I said earlier. as someone who had affiliations to Whaley. At strawweight, Vanessa Demopoulos defeated Jin Fry via split decision, 28-29, 29-28, and a very odd head-scratching 30-27 there. But it was a pretty close fight. I was fine with this. I wouldn't have necessarily had an issue if it went to Jin. I thought that she looked like the more technical, or at least sharper of the two on the feet in this one, whereas Vanessa was probably landing more effectively and impactful shots, which is always, what you're looking for, of course. Who's doing the most damage and impact. And then in the third round, kind of leaned on her grappling and sought out the control. Of course, as you can see there, the 3 minutes and 8 seconds to kind of ride that one out. So not the most exciting of rounds, but hey, got to do what you got to do. And I do think Vanessa lost the first round. That one felt pretty clear to me. But yeah, it was an all right fight. Nothing crazy. And just Vanessa's second or third decision win? We were looking at it last week, but yeah, I feel like I didn't see her post-fight with the media backstage, but I feel like that was a performance she'd probably be hard on herself about. But hey, you beat a good veteran there, former champ at atomweight. And I bet Vanessa could probably make atomweight if, she wanted to, if she needed to. I'd have to lose some muscle, of course, but a smaller fighter. As Ghost answers, saying cutting the cage is dependent on the fighter. Megumi, as a fan of Punch Breakdown, was easily able to cut down the Bellator cage in that robbery. Great point. I was thinking of that when he asked Ghost. So very true. Yeah, Bellator has always had the circle, I think, and that's a great example to go back and check out. Megumi is a goat. And Rue says, I scored this for Jin despite Ghost's problems with her. Well, his problems should not influence decisions, that's for sure. Because as the fight plays out, you got to score it as it is. Jin says, do you think this fight was closer than you think? Than I thought it would be? No, it doesn't. It didn't surprise me how close this was. I think I probably mentioned it, but I assumed Jin would have a slight edge in the striking, at least with cleaner technique. Like I kind of said, she was at least tighter, I would say. And then Vanessa, I mean, the power, I would have given an edge to her. Like we said, Jin, not much of a finisher. And in terms of the grappling, Vanessa has been much more dangerous throughout her entire career with submissions and what have you. So, no, this didn't surprise me too much. Not really. And Ghost is not going to complain about the decision, but happy for Vanessa. She had a good open side right hand counter, southpaw versus orthodox, and a good body kick. That is true. Glad you highlighted that. The right hand was probably her best strike for sure. And Ghost says, why do you think Vanessa didn't go back to it in the third round? I think she probably felt it was close, honestly. I mean, she was getting peppered there, a little bit red in the face. I think she was probably worried and wanted to try and secure the round in the fight as best as she could, and smart move because it was tied up on two of the judges, right? At least, what do we got here? Well, we don't have the exact rounds here on Fight Metric or UFC stats now, but I would assume that was her thought process. Again, I did not watch her post-fight, but maybe she talked about it. So, not sure. And Jimmy says, can Vanessa beat Cheyenne Vlismas? I think she could. Yeah, that'd be a good fight too. I feel like it'd be pretty close and even, similar to this one, honestly. But yeah, I think that's a fair matchup to make. Well, Cheyenne has to get through. I forget who she was matched with recently, right? But she did get a fight. And Makoto says, what do you think of her post-fight celebration with Bisping? Bisping dropped the ball. He didn't fully commit. He was one arm in it. He didn't go under the legs to catch her, but I think the microphone, if I'm remembering, he had to hold. It was bad position. So it's funny, though. I think that's a fun little thing for her to continue doing, especially if she gets to do it to Joe Rogan again, see how differently he reacts or if it's the same. So congrats to Vanessa, though. One of the happiest humans on the face of the planet. So can't help but feel good for her. And we'll see what's next for Jin. Snaps her streak that she got together. Just 2 fights, right? But she was on the opposite of that for a while. So that was UFC Vegas 57, you guys. Just the one and the done. And my goodness, what a crazy main event that was. Some of the most wild scrambles I've seen in a while. Super enjoyable to watch. Love me some good scrambling. And Jin says, how strong is Vanessa to hold herself up like that? Hey, man, stripper strength is no joke. She's used to balancing and positioning that body. So that's pretty much it. Core work, right? Working a pole and Bisping, totally no. Well, I guess I should watch what I say there. It can be phrasing. Oh, goodness. As Rue says, who do you think Jin should fight next for a favorable matchup? Good question. Good question, Rue. Who should Jin fight next? I mean, I wouldn't put her too far off of something similar to this. I don't know about a gatekeeper matchup or what have you. You know what? You guys know what I've been wanting. I've been wanting Jin versus Jessica Penne since they got on their streaks. Things are a little bit different now, and Dakota versus Penne is coming up. So we'll see what happens there, but I might say the loser of that one. So we'll see how it shakes out. Very excited for that fight, and very much a bittersweet one because I like both of them a whole lot. But I'd probably go the loser of that fight, Rue. I mean, feels like it doesn't make too much sense now that Jin just lost this one, but just because I want to get that former atomweight champ match pretty much. So, yeah. And Sammy says, can Fry still improve? She looked sharp in the first round. That she did. It was her best round. Yeah, I mean, it's never too late, right? And she's not like getting knocked out or anything. So I mean, gradually, I don't expect any massive improvements from her at this stage in her career, but I think she can, and it's kind of unfortunate. I don't think she'll be changing up camps or anything too much at this point, maybe cross training a bit, but it could benefit her to go somewhere bigger and with, some new faces like ATT or something. Who knows? You never know. But yeah, I don't expect any huge improvements, Sammy, but of course she can still improve bits and pieces gradually. But all right, let's breeze on through the news as we do. Got some pretty fun matchups here to talk about as we'll kick things off. At bantamweight, we already talked about the re-signing of Lucy Pudilova when Jillian DeCourcy was here with us. And now she has her fight as she takes on Wu Yanan, UFC 278, August 20th, Salt Lake City. So this one, I'm fine with this matchup. I think this should be very, very fun. Lucy Pudilova always brings it. She always brought it in the UFC. Her first stint just might not have won, obviously was the case. So she had to go leave, get some wins together. And so against Wu Yanan, she's going to bring it still. And I think that should bring it out of Wu in a fight that she absolutely needs to win. This is no doubt her last chance to keep her spot on the roster after what she's like one in 3 or 4 in the UFC now. She really desperately needs a win. And continuing to train in Jackson Wink alongside Mangbo and then all the other people at Jackson Wink, of course. So more time there will surely, in theory, help her. But again, this is a very, very important fight for a total definition of back against the wall. And not an easy opponent because of Lucy's incredible aggression and toughness. So that should be a very fun one. Great addition to UFC 278. I like it. No problems with this matchmaking. So we'll move right along. So we drop to the strawweight division for the return of Loma Lookboonmee as she takes on, what did I just do? Diana Belbita at the September 17th UFC Fight Night event. No location there just yet. Diana, of course, coming off of a very, very close and somewhat controversial loss to Gloria DePaula. I scored that one for Diana. Very fun fight, but a loss in the end for her, unfortunately. Feels like a while since we've seen Loma, and this one is going to look pretty funny because Diana should have significant length advantages here. So This has some very fun potential to be another great fight. This is a good matchup. I like this. Have no problems with it. Very curious when the last time we saw Loma was now, though. So don't know if ring rust will be a problem, unless I'm blanking on whatever her last fight was. But, well, I obviously am. But, yeah, I think this is a good one. That September 17th card is looking quite interesting. Good build up to it so far, I would say. And we have more coming, as the next fight is also on that card. At flyweight, the return of everybody's favorite non-related to Joe Gato sibling, family member, Melissa Gato is taking on Jillian DeCourcy. No, not DeCourcy. Roberson. See, I'm all over the place now after I mentioned Jillian. That would be big size difference there for Jillian. But it's Roberson versus Gato on that same night, wherever it'll be, September 17th. Gato looking to rebound off the loss to Tracy Cortez and against the black belt Jillian Robertson. So again, I don't know if I would necessarily say this is a back against the wall matchup or fight for Robertson, but she really could use a win here. Gato, not so much, but I'm sure she's going to be highly motivated off of that loss. And again, that was a performance where she just kind of got too comfortable in certain positions that she should not have. And here against Robertson, I think it's very, very safe to say she's, again, the better fighter everywhere, except for maybe top position, where Robertson is clearly her best at, as we've seen in her career. And if she can adapt and get better in other areas, that will certainly help her. But it's been kind of a slow burn. And I'm still very high on Melissa Gato. She has a very mixed game. Just kind of was a fight IQ issue, I think, in the last one with Cortez. So, but yeah, I'm fine with this matchup too. Think it is fine. Looking forward to it. Looking very much forward to it. So, all right, that is that. As we move on to a fight I'm glad to see, but I wish it was another fight. So very happy that Irene Aldana is back, and it will be at UFC 279 on September 10th, the week before the fights we just talked about. But she's taking on Macy Chiasson, not Jermaine Durandamy. God damn it. That's a bummer, but I always love to see Irene fight. She is one of my favorites as well. It's felt like forever since that Yana fight. What that was that UFC 269? I was there for that one. Yeah, it wasn't 268, right? That was the end of the year card. Pretty sure. But great performance there, obviously. And yeah, so now she's going to look to solidify her shot as the next title contender, even though Caitlyn is in front of her now. I think that's safe to say. But we got to wait and see what happens at the end of next month with Nunes and Pena, of course. We'll see. We'll see. It's kind of getting very tricky at bantamweight, and you want to see some fresh matchups, and we've been getting fresh matchups for sure, like this is too. And this should be a pretty fun fight. Of course, like matchup wise, this is fine. I think matchmaking wise, it's just kind of like the Jermaine fight is just so much nicer. It's so much nicer. And Macy coming back down to bantamweight after the interesting little stretch there at featherweight. Beat Norma Dumont the last time out, but didn't look amazing. Faded down the stretch. Again, could have been a featherweight issue. She never really had cardio issues, but in a fight with Aldana, I think she's going to want to replicate a bit of that performance against Norma. But yeah, both of these ladies can knock people out. So love some Aldana. Very excited for her to fight always. I just would love to see the Jermaine one. I just really would, but probably never will at this point, unfortunately. So UFC 279, getting some good stuff there. As we move along to a rebooking from a fight that was supposed to happen this week. We're supposed to talk about it later on in the show, but we're talking about it now because Lauren Murphy versus Misha Tate has been rebooked for UFC Long Island on July 16th after Murphy got the coronavirus. And pretty much the most interesting thing to me about this, and I mean, it's just It's just a shakeup. Makes UFC Long Island better, so I'm all for that. That's fun and good, even though it's a hit on this weekend's card, so that's a bummer too. And Misha's got to change up her preparation as well, all that kind of stuff. But it's very interesting to me, if you noticed or if you follow Lauren Murphy on Twitter, she tweeted out today, I believe it was, or yesterday, that she could, like, she made it sound like the UFC was going to let her still fight despite having COVID. That's how it reads. Here, let me pull it up, just because I don't want to obviously misinterpret these things, but I remember that's how she said it, but I'll read it out for you. So she said, "It's super unfortunate to get COVID right before International Fight Week, but I just couldn't in good conscience go forward with the fight this weekend and risk getting others sick. I'm recovering and will be in fighting shape soon." Does that not sound like it was entirely up to her? I mean, if you have COVID, you should not be allowed to fight. That to me reads like they gave her the option. As she said, she couldn't in good conscience continue on with it. So yes, thank you for that, Lauren, but that's very interesting if the UFC was going to let her do that. And I hope somebody asks about it. They probably won't because they don't care, but that's something I would ask Dana about this weekend, because that's interesting. But I will say it is, I guess, at a point where who knows? I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I was around somebody with the coronavirus recently, and I'm okay. I did already have it, and I have gotten vaccinated, but it just affects everybody differently, I guess. But yeah, not to get political here, of course, but that was what stood out to me about this news, as she pointed that out earlier today. So have to wait a while or a couple of weeks more until we see Cupcake make the flyweight debut, but hey, that's all right. Got to keep everybody safe, essentially. That's what that boils down to. So, all right, let's catch up here, you guys. Like I said, I've been liking to just breeze through the news real quick and then get the comments. Makoto says he was watching on Bang Tao's Instagram that Weili and Taito Iwasa were strength and conditioning together. It was really funny to see Weili outwork him. Have you seen it? No, I have not seen that, but I'm sure that's incredibly entertaining. If you could send me that, Makoto, like an email or something, I would love to see that. Could put that in the morning report for tomorrow. Yeah, that's hilarious. And should Weili do a shoey with him? I wouldn't recommend anybody doing a shoey. It's pretty gross, in my opinion, but it'd be highly entertaining, that's for sure. And Go says, talking about Wu Yanan. Wu has very buttery smooth combos. Bad part is her combos impact are as soft as butter. So double-sided butter effect there for Wu Yanan, says Ghost. And yeah, that is a good point, though. It says, do you think her opponent's aggression should help Wu? I don't know. I don't know if her counters will be enough. It depends, man. Like Lucy is she just walks through everything typically, and not that she lands when she's receiving. Like, look at the Aldana fight, for example, one of the best fights you'll ever see. But man, she just comes at you like a Terminator sometimes. And Esther is here. She says, "Hey, Drake Weili said in an interview that she's going to be helping a Thai girl for a UFC fight. Is it Loma? Does training with Weili help?" Yes, of course it helps. And I would imagine it would be Loma. She's the only Thai fighter in the UFC, unless somebody's being signed. So, and I think they were seen together recently. So, yeah, has to be. And James says, Joe Gato, Practical Jokers every Sunday, 9 p.m. Pacific time. Indeed. Go says, no way Loma's fighting. I heard she was lending her coaches and helping herself. Lending her coaches and herself to help her out. Oh, Weili, that is, he means. Okay, yes. All right, very cool. And Jen says, what is your favorite Irene Aldana strike? I already know it's the right straight to the body for Ghost, but what is yours? I mean, she's got a great hook, man. It's got a fantastic hook, and obviously, well, I mean, the one you're referencing there specifically, probably the finish of Yana, which was great. But I mean, just look at the Vieira one. It was just picture perfect. So It's just so great to watch Irene when she's on. Just fantastic boxing. So, yeah. And Mary says, Whaley also mentioned that she's grateful and humbled that Volkanovski's coach and Henry Cejudo's coaches can put their differences aside and help with her preparation. What do you think of Whaley training? Yeah, I mean, there's no point for them not to work together, right? It's like they're not in enemy situations where they're up against each other for the opponent or what have you. So, yeah. Hold on, got this here. Let's get rid of this guy. Okay. And Mary says, with different camps, but still able to coordinate with the original team. Yeah, see, that's all great. The more the merrier, as long as you don't overcomplicate. And Ruth says, would you be excited for a Tate versus Shevchenko matchup? I would, simply because Misha is one of my favorite fighters of all time. And I do really enjoy just watching Valentina in general too. So I would be excited for it. Yes, for sure. From a fan perspective, I don't know if I'd be super excited for Misha. I mean, I feel like it would be very similar to the Holly fight, Holly versus Misha, that is, where Misha's probably best chance would be to try and wrestle, which she could. We saw in the last fight, obviously, with Santos. So yeah, I'd be excited for it. I don't think she should get a title shot off of one win, but that is what it is, right? And just says, would Tate just take her down and submit Murphy? No, I don't think it'll be that easy. Lauren has pretty decent wrestling. And Ghost says, common sense says, don't fight if you have COVID. Yes, it sure does. And James says, are you covering UFC 276? Nope, I am here this week at home. I have a very important person in my life coming home this week, or in the middle of traveling home this week. So I got to be here for them. So, personal things overall, but hoping to get back to a UFC event to cover one at least sometime this year. We'll see what happens, but I will be covering, I will be in Vegas next month for one of the Contender Series. At least that's the plan right now. So just for like a day, though. It's just a day trip. So. And James says, can you ask Dana what he thought of Whaley's performance at UFC 275? All people keep asking him is about Joanna's retirement. Well, I'm sure he will have very positive things to say about it, James. Dana loves Whaley. He always has. Yeah, if the opportunity arises. And did he think the rematch lived up to the first one despite being so quick? Well, I think we know the answer to that one as well. It very clearly did not. It was still fun, great to watch, but no, I mean, there was never really any topping the first fight. You simply cannot. And Sammy says, I agree with James. It's been Joanna retirement overshadowing the performance and other strawweights downplaying Whaley's performance. I really haven't seen too much downplaying, but yeah, there was obviously the retirement overshadowing. I can agree with that. And James says, well, then never mind about the questions. Yeah, we have to save them. We'll have to save them for a different time. But good to know. Good to know. Have them regardless. Yuna's here and says, hi. Well, it makes me sad that John Yadpech is not single. Oh, come on, Yuna. You still can be happy for him. Hopefully he's in a good spot. He's super cute and a very good pad holder. Well, hey, it's got it going on then. So, all right, let's move on to the previews now, because we've got 3 events, like I said, starting off with 2022 PFL 6, which goes down this Friday, Atlanta, Georgia. Where's the tab? Here we are. So this is out of date now. The picture, unfortunately, as we talked about, we haven't talked about it yet, right? Because it did happen after last Monday, but I didn't put it in the news because we'll talk about it now. But Julia Budd, unfortunately, injured out of this fight. So that sucks big time. But to save the day is the lightweight alternate, one of the pioneers of the sport, Miss Caitlyn Young. So very happy for Caitlyn to get this opportunity. She deserves it. And that'll be your main event now. Kayla versus Caitlyn. So Willie will start off, though, down the line here, as kind of a bummer to see him just push everyone to the bottom, but hey, is what it is. Kicking things off with Elena Kaleznick versus Vanessa Mellow. So this fight right here, Vanessa Mellow just we've kind of, I don't know how to put this with Vanessa Mellow, but she had troubles at 135, whether it was with making weight or performing in general. And then at 155, there's been no weight issues, but she still just is not the greatest, I guess. I can't put it that way. Very nice lady. She is. Talked to her ahead of the last one, but just kind of was coming at Martina Yandrova, who you can see here. We'll talk about in a sec. And was taking shots all night long. Wasn't very competitive. And against Elena, I think she'll have a better chance because Elena is a bit more aggressive and wild, but still she does damage. And in her last fight with Abby Montez, which I do think Abby won, not quite a robbery, but close, very close. But I think should have went to Abby, as did a lot of people. But yeah, Kaleznick was very aggressive, and she's always pretty aggressive. We saw her head get taken off by Larissa Pacheco last season. Hasn't quite learned from that, if we're going to judge off the Abby fight, but I think she can overwhelm the smaller Mellow for the most part in this one, and Mellow's best chance will be to utilize her grappling, which she had zero success with against Yandrova the last time out. But we'll see. You never know. It's MMA, and in the PFL specifically, crazy things can happen. But Kaleznick should, again, be able to overwhelm Mellow in most areas of this fight. Size is a factor. Then we go on to Yandrova versus Zugul Fisa Lenova, which this is on paper quite an interesting matchup that I'm looking forward to. Yandrova, obviously one of the probably the best pure kickboxer out of all the women in the tournament. Has looked great in her first two PFL fights. Zugul, unfortunately, we didn't get to see very much at all from her against Pacheco in her last fight, and she got just completely smashed real quick. But she's a grappler, has great judo and whatnot. So if she can get a hold of Yandrova, that's where things get interesting. This is pretty striker versus grappler of a matchup. Don't think that Yandrova should have too much problems on the feet. But again, we just haven't seen too much of Zugul on the feet. And what we did see last time was not great. And she just got kind of ran over by Pacheco, essentially. So that's that one. And then Marina versus Abby Montez. I really like this matchup too, actually. This is a good one. Abby is always very fun. And the reason I think that, I mean, despite the fact that she should have won anyway, in my opinion, against Elena, if she would have incorporated her grappling more and I guess made it potentially more of a boring fight, she would have been fine. She would have definitely won. Because I think she would have been capable of taking down Elena, who is primarily a striker. So she can't do that in this one, though, against Marina, who is also a very talented grappler, great sambo, as we saw, was able to survive against Kayla and threaten in some submissions with knee bars and whatnot, and just kind of find better positions and escape from certain positions. This will be one, again, where it's not striker versus grappler necessarily, because Marina has gotten better in the striking department as time has gone on, that's for sure. It's just that Abby obviously won't want to gamble on the ground. So anytime it goes there or anytime it gets into a grappling exchange, Abby will be risking it against Marina, but on the feet, she'll want to keep it there and kind of fights at distance, I think, just to avoid any potential throws that she could be hit with, So that's how that one's looking. But that's the first three there of the. Oh yeah, we got this one too. I forgot about Pacheco versus Fabian, which this should also be very fun. These matchups actually aren't too bad, aside from, I guess, the first one. But I'm intrigued. I'm very much intrigued. Jenna Fabian beat Julia Budd last time, which was pretty big upset in my opinion. Showed some great grappling improvements despite coming in overweight. She was a couple pounds overweight, so she has practically no chance at making the playoffs now. I think she would need some crazy shit to happen. But yeah, looked great for mostly everywhere in the last fight. Did get taken down early, controlled a bit by Bud, but was able to stay strong and not tire out anything as the fight went on, and then kind of turned things around. But with Pacheco, who has just become quite a monster, above 135, and both of them can finish. Jenna's going to have the length advantages 100% here. And I did say that Yandrova kickboxing, more accomplished, at least a better resume than Jenna, but Jenna's also a good kickboxer. Pacheco, though, is the most powerful fighter in the division. When she hits you, it hurts real bad. Jenna is definitely going to want to fight the long game distance, and hey, maybe even try and surprise with that wrestling she was showing off against Bud. But I think Larissa she's not a slouch on the ground, but she's just been smashing through people lately. So I'm sure she's going to look to do that again. And we'll kind of see how Jenna can deal with it. Utilize that jab, put together some combos, attack the lead leg when you can. But it's going to be a lot of aggression coming at you, I think. Play the Matador, essentially. We always talk about Bull and Matador. Perfect for Jenna Fabian when you're as long and tall as she is. Utilize that kind of strategy if you can. And I do implore Caitlyn Young to try and do the same thing against Kayla Harrison. Easier said than done. But we know that on the ground, she's not going to have much of a chance. Caitlyn has always been a fantastic striker. And I'm kind of, by saying these things, I discredit her again. But she was an alternate. But Caitlyn has always been a very fine striker. Puts things together well. Has kind of gotten a little bit slower, obviously, as she's continued to age, as you do. But it's all right. And against Kayla, I mean, with each fight, I feel like we're seeing her get hit more and more. Like Marina did land some good shots on her, and Caitlyn is a better striker than Marina. And they were supposed to fight at one point. I think that was supposed to be Marina's debut, but yeah, Caitlyn's certainly capable of winning the striking exchanges here in this fight. Keep Kayla away from you, land your shots, and she has a path to victory. But yeah, 15 minutes to not go to the ground or get pressed against the cage, right? I'd be stunned if Kayla, was managed to knock out Caitlyn or something like that on the feet. I don't think she ever has been. But yeah, kind of how that one's looking. Kind of cut and dry. Again, not straight up striker versus grappler, but a lot of these have those elements, where you look at their backgrounds and what they're best at. Undeniably, Kayla is the best on the ground out of everybody practically here. And then Caitlyn is a better striker than her, though. That's just how it is. Just how it is. So I'm actually not too upset with this card, though, for the most part. Mary said, my apologies, Drake. I made a bunch of written notes of what Whaley said. No problem. Hey, you do you. As Mary says, Whaley also mentioned that she has a group of coaches and people that sole job is to study the habits of herself and her coaches, and her opponents, excuse me. Yeah, it's good to have a team. Said that she now specifically trains for the habits of her opponents and tries to fix her bad habits. What do you think of her dedication to hire so many coaches for small things like habits? I mean, that's some serious attention to detail, and that makes sense why she's gotten so good and why she's such a kind of freak athletically. And when it comes to training, I mean, you want to be the best. So that hyper focus gets you to the championship status for a reason. As Mary says, and she said every fight preparation for her is different because she used to try to train everything, but now she trains to fit a game plan on the habits of the opponent. She mentioned habits. Yeah, smart. We've seen that worked plenty in the past. And as you know more and more about opponents, as you get to the peak, really, and there's footage of everybody, why not? At the beginning, you kind of have to just train everything and go with how it is. And she says, because you says those are things that you cannot change, right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can change habits. I disagree with that, but it's harder, obviously, to break them. So if you can adapt, I guess, then that's kind of where she's coming from. As that's kind of what I'm answering there, Mary. Yeah, I think it's some serious hyper focus, like I said. And Jin said, what makes Marina Makhnutkina a great samboist is her ability to hold subs. I think that's definitely a part of it. Marina, though, if you just kind of watch that Kayla fight specifically, you see she's just very aware of all positions and kind of the little movements. And it was very impressive to see how she would avoid Kayla getting on her back. And then if Kayla did, how she approached it. So, and we haven't seen too many throws from her in MMA, but she has a good kind of awareness for positions overall. And yeah, like specifically with that knee bar that she would go for. Maybe she wasn't close to getting it or anything, but just to threaten with it and get you there. She's very good about that. And I think she had 4 straight arm bars at the beginning of her career. So yeah, she'll hold that too. And Alan says, it's such a great time to be a fight fan. Mr. Riggs, are you excited for this time of year? Yeah, no, man, it has been pretty darn good. It's a hot summer of MMA, no doubt about it. And Jimmy says, why do you think the UFC can't put cards together like these past few weeks, starting from UFC 275 year round? Well, I mean, if you look at it, Jimmy, like even still on paper, I don't think this last card was like too great. And some of them haven't been. They've just ended up delivering very, very well, in terms of names and, star power, whatever you name it and whatever you look for to make a card stacked. I wouldn't necessarily say these cards have had it, but they've been very, very good. 275 was. I'm not saying that one, but like the fight nights specifically. And Go says, Jenna was training with Izzy and Volk. Should that give her an advantage? I see her and Izzy training together on IG a few months back. Yeah, I mean, she hasn't been training with them for a while, right? Because she hasn't gone back home. But yeah, that definitely always helps. And Sharon is here, says, hello, Drake. I saw on last week's BTL that a bunch of people in the chat went there just to make fun of Jed. Is that bullying? Yes, I would say so. Whenever you're making fun of somebody, it's generally bullying. Sharon says, I love your show, especially on rewatch, but what do you think of this? I mean, I appreciate that, Sharon. If you can like it however you like it. So the whole big thing about the show, right, is the live aspect. Of course, I can do it unrecorded or recorded too and whatnot, but ever since we went live with the last incarnation, it's kind of been a fun little element to have. So if you like the rewatches, that's great. But, it's been about adding that interaction element. So however you want to take it in, we appreciate it greatly here. And Ruth says, didn't Kayla Harrison help Joanna to prep Whaley? Odd choice, but does it help Kayla prepare for her fight as well? I mean, it helps her get better, but for the matchup that was Julia Budd at first, I wouldn't exactly say so. Very, very different styles. So I doubt she was training with Joanna in terms of for the game plan specifically or whatnot, but just to improve her striking. So, because that wouldn't make sense. Joanna and Julia Budd are completely different fighters. And I doubt, I mean, Kayla's in Atlanta now, so she probably had no time whatsoever to train with Joanna for Caitlyn Young. And Jumbo says, what's been your favorite event, Drake? Jumbo, you mean this year or ever? I need specifics on that one because I can give you an answer probably. Sharon says, sorry, Drake, I meant, what do you think of your chat bullying Jed? No, I don't like it. I mean, I don't like anybody being bullied. You guys know I'm all about respect. I can't control them, though, when they're not under my watch, so I would implore you guys not to. I appreciate this. Here, support me. Don't bully somebody else. That's what's okay. I'm fine with that, but there's no need to be mean to the guy, even if you don't like him, unless it's deserved, right? But then it's like, what do you determine as deserved? Like, I do like Jed as much as we go back and forth. It's kind of the whole point of it is just to have fun and poking fun. It's never serious. Whenever I talk shit about Jed, it's never serious. It's just having fun with things. Because yeah, we're cool. We're totally cool, but to be straight up hateful is never a good thing. Again, unless warranted, unless they're being realistically hateful, I guess. But I haven't seen that. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that kind of thing, Sharon. But supporting as your way of, I don't know, speaking against somebody, that's great. Like, I'm all for that. But I don't want to be attached to the negativity either, you know, so that doesn't help you guys. But Rue says, because Joanna is so technically good at positions. Well, not necessarily. Hey, you're getting me all mixed up here now, Rue. I think that's the sarcasm, I think. But Jumbo says this year, oh boy. I mean, it was probably UFC 275. I had so much fun watching that event. It was insane. That card was so insane. And I know it's still fresh, so let me think a bit here. I mean, we had 271 was what, Adesanya and Whitaker, I think. 272, 273 was pretty fun. 274 had some crazy shit. And I did enjoy 274 a lot too. UFC Austin was obviously insane. RIZIN 35 was freaking good. I mean, there's been a pretty good amount of cards, but in terms of the one I had the most fun watching, like, I really enjoyed UFC 275 top to bottom. That's probably it for me. And again, I know still fresh, but there have been some pretty darn good events. And yes, I did see he said I was cheating, so that was funny. But again, it's all in good fun. And so that's why you ganged up. So I mean, yeah. Yeah, I did see that. Silly. He just can't accept it. He can't accept the loss. 260-40's the guy. He can't handle it. So just what it is, you know. Got to let him live in denial. Can't catch a win. You know, he's already taken it bad enough. It's like what Pena said to Nunes. Shameless plug on my interview I did with Juliana Pena, the bantamweight champ. Why kick a dog when it's down? As Ruth says, I mean, Joanna is so good at counter wrestling and her positions that it should help Kayla with Julia Budd, right? Or is she strength difference too much? That's the thing, right? The size, I think that's why. I mean, that's a strawweight working with a lightweight. That's just a little too insane. And Julia Budd, body-wise, completely different from Kayla. I mean, the intricacies, I'm sure, could be pointed out, but in terms of like effectively simulating it, I don't think that's the way to do it. But kind of making her aware and kind of teaching in that aspect, I think that's a good point, Rue, because yeah, Joanna is obviously one of the best, you know, defensive wrestlers we've ever seen. So yeah. And Ghost is just providing facts too, saying Drake is just always better than Jade. I mean, that's just a fact. So that's all you need to say. But that was 2022 PFL 6. So we will get on now to the UFC 276 preview. Just 2 fights because we did lose Tate versus Murphy. And I'm kind of surprised that both of these cards are fights, buried a bit. We're kicking things off with friend of the show, Miss Jessie Jess is back. Jessica Rose Clark as she takes on former Invicta bantamweight champion Yulia Stoliarenko in what should be quite a fun fight here to open up the action. Very first fight of the night. Jessie Jess looking to rebound off of, very unfortunate performance the last time out against Stephanie Egger, whereas Yulia really needs to snap the 3-fight losing streak. But I mean, no shame in these opponents, that's for sure. My goodness, I can't believe it's already been 3 for her since she came back. Wow, kind of crazy. So 100% she needs to win this fight to stay in the UFC. And I mean, she's probably on a 4-fight contract anyway, so she's going to have to negotiate even if she wins. But we got the odds here at plus 100, near even underdog. I guess if you could even say that for Julia. And then Jessie with the slight 125 there. Reach advantage and height advantage goes to Stoliarenko. Jessie Jess been training at CSA. Team Alpha Male, which is not listed, where she wrestles, kind of been all over the California scene a bit there. I don't know how accurate that 10th planet is. I've not so sure. I'll have to ask her about that, but always love watching Jessie. Obviously was amazing in the Sarah Alpar fight before the ACL tear, came back, out wrestled the shit out of Jocelyn Edwards, looks very strong, great in that one. Oh, and training at DC's Academy, right? So that's not on here either. So she's just been bouncing around, but is definitely a CSA gal primarily. And then the last one, kind of leaned on the wrestling when she shouldn't have, and it cost her. And in this fight, she will probably want to be careful with that again, because Stoliarenko, as versatile as she has proven to be as time has gone on, I mean, that Lisa Verzosa fight, one of the craziest fucking fights you'll ever see. The bloodiest fight I've ever seen in my entire life. An absolute murder scene at the end of it. Elbow fest from her too, like slicing and dicing. Great shots on the feet. Mixed attack from Stoliarenko. Haven't really got a chance to see that from her in these past 3 fights, except for in the clinch. People have been smothering her. That's been kind of the way to beat Yulia, is to smother her against the cage and not let her breathe and beat her up there. But if you take her down, then you're risking getting armbarred, because she's very, very good at getting armbars from practically any position. But I think all of her wins, except for that Versosa Classic, are by armbar. So Jessie, to be safe and not at all using MMA math, because she's coming off an armbar loss right there. Not at all to use MMA math. I mean, could be susceptible, but yeah, I mean, you're just always in danger with Yulia when it comes to arm bars. So why not do your best to avoid that and continue to bully her on the feet, as we've seen again, the likes of Davis be able to do. But Alexis Davis is also a very talented black belt in BJJ as well. So she was fine on the ground with Yulia, but then, Raging Panda beat her up, as she does. Man, I miss Raging Panda so much. Yana Kunitskaya pretty much did exactly what I'm saying here. Replicate that game plan is what Jessie should do. Make it ugly against the fence. Pretty similar to what she did against Alpar, I guess. Make it dirty in there. Get the knees in tight, elbows. Give her an old clinching. So, and I mean, of course, at distance or range when they have space, I think that she can be fine there too. But it'll just be a little bit more competitive. Her best path, the best path to victory against Yulia is what I'm saying, seems to have been lately has been taking away her space. So that could be where to go for the Aussie hooligan. As Go says, hey, I saw Jessie Jess and Des Yanez with Kieran Fitzgibbons for an instructional. Is Jessie still at TSA? They have cool drills. Yes, she is. For basic striking and partner drills, he says. Yes, Jessie is still at CSA. And Rue asking about the next fight. We'll get to that in a sec. And Rue says, is Jessie Jess' situation the same as Whaley's, where she's looking for world-class coaches to help her, like bouncing from camp to camp? I guess kind of similar. I mean, she has her, like, the home base, right? CSA is the primary camp, and Coach Kieran is her main coach, but she just likes to get all the different looks. So yeah, kind of similar. I wouldn't say bouncing around maybe to the same extent, but yeah, she goes to a bunch of places kind of to mold the super strategy, I suppose you could say. As Kimball is here, good to see you, Kimball. She says, hi, Drake. I've noticed a lot of MMA media like to talk about confidence, but how does one measure confidence? I feel like that's an internal thing, not something that can be quantified. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. I just say, am I missing something? But it's just kind of reading what they're putting out there, I guess, the things that they say, how they carry themselves. Like, sometimes it's very obvious, and I mean, one of the examples I always talk about on here is Alicia Zapatella, who is supremely, impossibly confident in herself, to a fault. But yeah, I think that at the heart of what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, technically you can't really. It's just kind of believing in the person, right? They can say everything they want. It's just a matter of if you believe it or not. So, Rue says, what do you think of that? Is bouncing around good for a fighter? Good for her? Or is it different from fighter to fighter? Yeah, it's totally situational. I think we've seen it hurt people in the past. I think I know Randa Marcos used to do that. Well, she kind of did / does do that. When she was in the UFC, obviously she's in a little bit of a limbo right now. Don't know what's going on with her, but yeah, I think it depends on the person and what extremes you're going to go for. And James says, "Are you going to root for Jessie Jess?" Well, I shouldn't admit it, but yes, I'm always rooting for Jessie Jess. I consider her a friend, so I don't think that's any secret at this point. So it is what it is. But yes, I'm always rooting for Jessie Jess, and planning to catch up with her on Wednesday. So spoiler alert, we'll see. I might have jinxed it. Maybe we won't chat, but if you guys have any questions for Jessie Jess, feel free to drop them on to me. So yes, Jessie Jess for life. As Ranges, are people overlooking Yulia? I'm assuming you mean not Julia Budd because she's out, but Stolyarenko. They have her with some respectable odds here. I think that line is fine, as we talked about earlier. I don't think they're overlooking her at this point. I feel like we might have seen the best of her. And she's still just 29, but we know what she does very well. And like I said, we kind of seen how to negate her. So I don't think she's being overlooked, but it's just she's got tough matchups at bantamweight in the UFC. We've come to realize, So yeah. And hey, she could very well win this fight. Like I said, she could very well win it. She has some great elbows too in tight. So the clinch battle of this fight, which I expect we will get at some point, it's going to be pretty fun. We could see some blood. You kind of always see blood from Stolyarenko, whether it's from her or opponents. But yeah, if this goes to the ground again, she could very well catch Jessie in an armbar. So all right, there we go from Ghost. Let's see, can I copy this? I cannot copy that. So send that to me in DMs, Ghost. But yes. And Jin says, "What's Jessie Jess's best strike? Is it her elbows?" I wouldn't say so. She loves using elbows. She really does. But she hasn't quite gotten to use them as much as she would like to. I know that. She always talks about it. But her knees are pretty good, man. At least they have been. And her jab isn't terrible either. But I don't know. Hey, that's something I could ask her, see what she thinks her best strike is, a solid push kick, but I'm not sure. She does like elbows a lot, though. She does. And I would say no, Jin. Like I said, it's something she's been kind of working on to make more available for her in situations. But yes. But yeah, I will ask her, which is kind of funny that I actually haven't done that before. Let me write it down real quick. It's just as we move on to the next fight. Which was it? Rue asked about this, but Macy Barber versus Jessica Ai at flyweight. Going down. What, two fights after Jessie Jess, I think. Oh, what did Rue ask here? He said, "Do you think the Ai versus Barber fight is manipulative BS matchmaking that you and Ghost hate?" Manipulative and BS. Yeah, definitely never a fan of those kind of things. I know what you're talking about, but no, obviously the records here don't look great with Jennifer Maia, the loss, and then Joanne Wood. I'm having total deja vu right now about talking about this before. I feel like we've talked about this before big time. Very strange. And then the odds here, plus 180 to minus 220. Has this fight been booked before? I'm having a big deja vu here, you guys. I gotta look in depth to this. This had to have been booked before. Or I'm seeing the future. Or I've seen the future. Let's see. I'm tripping out, man. Nope, it was never booked. Okay, well, that's crazy. That's that. You guys can watch me lose my mind here, but No, I wouldn't say that, because if you look at Macy's last 2 wins, Montana, yes, that was a good win. Good performance there. The Miranda Maverick one, she lost that one. We know she lost that one, big time robbery. So, I mean, the thing with Jessica Ai is we know that it seems she's never going to get cut from the UFC, but if not that I'm wanting somebody to be cut, just clarify. But if you lose another one here, and what are we doing? And yes, I know some people did think that she beat Jennifer Maia, which you can think that, I guess, but I think these were all pretty clear losses. And against Macy, if she, I mean, we've just kind of seen with Jessica in the past that, again, kind of similar talking about the last fight, but we know that, I just look at the Calvillo fight. Like, it was relatively easy for Calvillo to take her down and control her. Macy isn't like a super wrestler or anything, and not as good of a wrestler as Calvillo, but I think she should be capable of doing that. And Macy, even if you don't like her, you got to admit she has some pretty good power for flyweight. She could put Jessica Ai out. Who knows? Get her backed up. She gets pretty aggressive, especially when she needs to. But Jessica Ai, of course, always has ways, no matter what, of making fights closer than they should be. Fights that shouldn't be as close as they end up being. She has that effect about her, similar to Betch Correia. So, I mean, that was the case with Jennifer Maia, with JoJo, kind of. But again, they were still clear. The Calvillo fight was not close. Shevchenko fight, obviously not. The Araujo one was a weird one. Obviously closer, because you would have favored Araujo in that one. But that was when she faded down the stretch, of course. But yeah, Macy rightfully favored in this one. I wouldn't say it's completely manipulative. I mean, I guess it can be spun that way if she wins, Rue, right? If she wins, then, oh, Macy beat Jessica Ai. This name has been around for a while, yada, yada. But it's like, let's be realistic. It's Jessica Ai, though, and Jessica Ai in 2022. But again, these fighters can always surprise us with new things. You never know, but yeah. And we could see, I mean, Macy kind of got back to what she had been doing before she got really tentative, and I guess tentative is just the best way to put it, striking at air in that Maverick fight and then stealing it in the end anyway. She looked very good against Montana. I think in the clinch, she landed some very big shots, and just overall, that was a great performance from her. So shouldn't be too difficult to replicate, but you never know. So let me catch up here. James says, why does UFC put a fight like this on such a stacked card? I mean, hey, gotta fill it out. And I think they are both ranked, on the official rankings. This is the silly Tapology rankings that you see here, which are awful, but yeah, they are ranked flyweights, and they're buried though, James. Like, they're not on the main card or anything. They're on the very first prelims. So, and Gus says, why not match Barber up with Manon, which should say it was originally supposed to be Jessica Ai versus Manon, right? That was what we were supposed to be getting. It says that's a good outfighter and a pressure fighter matchup, and it's close stance both southpaw, so the exchanges would become more chaotic. So, I mean, stylistically and matchup wise, Ghost, I like what you're saying, but Manon, Macy, like, she's not. They're at different points right now. That would be much more of a favor to Macy in terms of the potential outcome, whereas Manon should be fighting up, right? So, and in terms of name value, Macy is fighting up with this fight too. So there's many different ways to look at it that way. But I like what you're saying matchup-wise. I really do. And Rue says, why is UFC still building her up, though? This seems like the highest ranking with the least risk. That's a fair point. I'd have to look at the rest of the rankings, which, why not? Let's do it. I mean, in terms of like hype and all that, I definitely feel like they're not building her up the same way anymore. Definitely not. Like I said, this fight is on. This is like the third fight of the night, you guys. So she Yeah, if they wanted to make it obvious, they would put this like the last fight of the prelims or something, but that's not the case. But let's look at the division real fast, shall we? Let's look at the least risk, highest reward for Macy. All right, Casey O'Neill is right above her. Then there's Jess Guy, Cynthia Calvillo, JoJo, KGB, Jennifer. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably exactly dead on there. And I mean, I really probably didn't even need to look at the rankings for that because you guys know how I do feel about Jess Guy. But yeah. As Go says, manipulative BS is Shevchenko versus Priscilla right after Shevchenko lost to Nunes and to justify her title shot to Nico. That is objectively true. James says, but it would be better without this. Well, we'll see. We'll see. You don't know that just yet. As James says, I mean, if you want to get Whaley famous, why not put her on this card and another low rank fighter get more notoriety? Well, that's one way to look at it. And Go says, Iver's Barber's not the same. I mean, yeah, Priscilla and Shevchenko is just one of the most ridiculous examples of all time. I mean, it's the perfect example, but it's like so insane that did happen. So very insane that happened. Yeah. Absolute madness. And Sammy says, Barbara has been training a Team Alpha Male. What is Team Alpha Male best asset to teach fighters except for beefing with Cruz? I think it's wrestling. I think it's 100% wrestling. I mean, you look at some of the guys they got in there. You know, Josh Emmett. Cody's not there anymore, right? But he does have decent wrestling, which he never uses. So I guess that's a bad example. But Josh Emmett, who also doesn't use his wrestling all that much lately, or really, I guess, throughout his whole UFC career. But Faber is obviously a great wrestler. Benavidez was a great wrestler. Mendez, Darren Elkins is there. Clay Guida is there now. Like, it's wrestling. Team Alpha Male has the wrestlers. And that's why Jesse goes there, I'm pretty sure, as well. Along with DC's Academy. So, all right. Well, that was UFC 276. So, great timing we got here. As it's time to talk about RIZIN 36 and the atomweights, everybody. You know, we always love talking about the atomweights. As we're going to Okinawa, Japan this weekend for RIZIN 36. And we are kicking things off with Mizuki Nisei Oshiro versus the 17-year-old wonder child, Moeri Suda. And as mentioned at the top of the hour, shameless plug, Braun Rising episode 16, I had Miss Suda on the show. Very shy for a high schooler. No surprise there because she is still in high school. Still 17. She'll turn 18, I think, next month, end of next month. This will be her RIZIN debut. Nisei made her RIZIN debut in her second to last fight. Against Eric Koga. It was that split decision, which I think she should have lost. It was a fun, competitive fight. You guys know that I think with Nisei, she just never has really impressed me. Still just 26, but she's just been like, has not looked great against, admittedly, people she should not have looked great against. So Siwoo Park, right? Aono, fair. The last fight, Miki Matono, of course. At strawweight, too. I'm pretty sure that was a strawweight fight. Pretty sure. And then Koga, again, close one. Feruse, all right. That was a fair win. Needed that one. But yeah, Nisei just, she's been very odd. She's been kind of slow to improve. She's stagnated a whole lot for a prospect, and her record has shown that, obviously. But had that incredible, victory over that upset over I'm blanking on her name. I feel so bad. What's her? One of the legends. One of the. I feel so bad. I mean, let me look real quick. What was it? Satoko Shinashi, right? Of course, I knew it was. Yeah, I haven't thought about Shinashi in a bit, but yes, one of the legends of the sport. So that was very impressive, very surprising. And as you can see, Nisei is just very tiny, 4'11", and taking on Mori, who has a win over Eru Takabayashi, everybody's favorite fellow high schooler. I think Takabayashi's probably graduated by now, but they're two of that was the battle of super prospects, right? The very young schoolgirls, essentially. Armbarred her, and then armbarred Iono, which very, very impressive for Suda to do that at her age. Like Iono, again, is a prospect who's kind of stagnated out and has proven just to be a wrestler purely at this point. But to submit her, that's pretty impressive. So that was a big deal. You know, good wins before then too. And then has the loss in her last fight, a title fight against Saori Oshima, you know, just a month and a week ago, as you can see there. No shame in that one. Got kind of stuck in a bad position pretty early, but again, that's just credit to Oshima being one of the best in the world. So she was, you want to talk about thrown to the wolves matchups, you guys? Mori Suda was thrown to the fucking wolves at 17 years old in a title fight against, you know, a top 5 fighter. And she'll learn from that. And sounds like she is, you know, grateful for that opportunity and experience, and now taking on Nisei. And on the feet, I don't expect this to be anything too crazy. The grappling is where this will be most fun. And Suda has quite a killer instinct, as we've seen in all of her fights so far. She finds an opening, pretty good at capitalizing on it. And Nisei, just, you know, once you get on top of her, she isn't too great at getting out from under. So lean towards Suda. I mean, she's just been more dangerous as well. And practically all areas, even though we haven't seen too much striking from her. It's pretty much right to what she's best at, which why not? Getting those reps in. You're 17. 17. That's just maddening to me. And Rue says, what do you think of Gamrot winning? I know it's not the same. I don't know what you're comparing it to, Rue, but yeah, Gamrot winning. I did think Sarukian won. What, 1, 2, and 4 is kind of like the easy way to do it. And then I can even see I could see arguments for, I could maybe see arguments for him winning every round except for maybe the 3rd round. I don't know. It was a very, very interesting fight to score. But yeah, 1, 2, and 4, I think for sure. As Rue says, oh no, yeah, I see. Armin won because of his body work, or is that a ghost influence on me? No, I mean his body kicks were fantastic. And Jin says, what do you think of high schoolers fighting this early? Yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? Like she's fighting somebody who is almost 10 years older than her, but that person is still just 26. Like that is very bizarre. I don't know. It feels weird to me, but like we've seen it enough times now where I don't think it matters. Like Maury's winning and she's not taking a whole bunch of damage. Like that's when it becomes maybe an issue, is when the person's getting fucked up real bad. But we haven't seen that ever, really, that I can remember. I mean, Mizuki Furuse is pretty young too, and she's been beat up pretty bad, but I think she's like 21 now. So it's a weird thing though, for sure. It feels very weird. Like even when I was talking to her, I was like, this is a kid. This is a kid. And Ghost says, off topic question, what hate is worse, the bigoted and racist hate Whaley got since she's been champion, or the hate Carla is currently getting? Oh, very, very clearly the Whaley hate, Ghost. That's not even a question. You know the answer to that. Mary says, I also noticed on Whaley's live chat that her Thai coach, I guess just to go back to that real quick, the Carla hate is more, I don't know, disrespectful in terms of their abilities and stuff like that. I don't know. Either way, those are two very different things, but I think we know which one's worse for sure. As Mary says, I also noticed on Whaley's live chat that her Thai coach, John Yadpech, was getting more attention than her win. What are your thoughts on this? I also think he's hot, but Whaley's performance was great. All right, so everybody's on board with Mr. Yadpech. I don't know. I don't really have a thought since I didn't see any of it, but good for him, I guess. As Jumbo says, serious question, Drake. Lots of Chinese fans are downplaying up-and-coming fighters like Zhao Nan and Liang Na with Whaley's accomplishments. It makes me sad to see. What do you think of this behavior? Well, yeah, that is a bummer. And I don't know if I'd necessarily say Zhao Nan's up-and-coming anymore. She's obviously one of the best fighters in the division. Whereas Liang Na, if you're being downplayed, if they're both being downplayed, you know, it's probably because they're both fresh off losses. For Young, not 2 losses, and then Weili just won. So I know that wasn't the case until, obviously just UFC 275, but MMA fans are super duper fickle. It's very, what have you done for me lately? So I think that's probably how they're looking at it. And Jumbo says, it makes me sad for the other fighters, but we cannot control other people. Yes, very true. And goes to see, my thing is a double standard. The MMA media didn't back up Weili when she was getting hate, but they are with Carla. Yeah. For when it comes to that kind of thing, I'm gonna assume in most cases it's people not wanting to get political, which I generally don't like to either. But in certain cases, you kind of have to admit certain things are wrong. But just be cognizant of that people really don't like to get political if they don't have to. I mean, some people clearly don't care, but that's when you look at it, it's not. It's a political issue in a way. Well, it was in a way, and then blatant human rights issues, I guess, versus just kind of business and preferences with a Carla situation, And Go says, the only person that spoke up against the bigotry was you, Drake, which is great. Well, I appreciate that. See, like like I said, I always like to keep it real no matter what, even though I never like to get too justice-y or, whatever it may be. I just do whatever is right, whatever you feel is right, and speak about whatever. So I do my best, man. It can be exhausting, though. So, all right, let's close up the show here with the last fight. Quite an interesting one. And speaking of Sarioshima, she's taking on Miyu Yamamoto, and oh boy, what should be one hell of a wrestle fest. You want to talk about some good scrambling and grappling exchanges that we are going to get? We're going to get them in this one. I really like this matchup. You thought Gamrot versus Saryukin was good? I mean, it was. And this, not saying this will be better, but it should be very, very interesting. Very fun. As with Miyu, we know that she is arguably the best pure wrestler at atomweight. Pure wrestler, right? Like I think it's debatable now with, the likes of Saka being around and Sayori still, who just like the best MMA wrestler is. But in terms of pure wrestling, I think it's pretty clearly Miyu. She needs a win in this one, coming off the 2 losses. Ayaka, that phenomenal performance from Ayaka, who also is great MMA wrestler, clearly. Judo, of course. And then the Rana fight, which she was winning, just got caught with a perfectly timed knee. So credit to Rana there. Nothing wrong about that or whatever. But yeah, Miyu was winning that fight, doing some good damage on the ground. Holy fuck, too. Look at a 20-year age difference. Yeah, that's I want to talk about the age gaps. That's insane to see, but not surprising. We know that Miyu is the most badass grandma on the fucking planet. Nearly 50. Just incredible. That's just incredible. It's still doing the damn thing. And against Sayori, this matchup is so intriguing because I think really it's going to come down entirely, for Miyu specifically, it's going to come entirely down to top control, because Sayori Oshima is always just boom, 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 going to get a hold of you from the jump. Whether that is on top or bottom, she's super comfortable on bottom and will probably be fine on the bottom. It's just a matter of if Miyu can survive the submission threats, and she should be okay and do damage and whatnot. But as we know, Sayori Oshima, phenomenal up kicks, as we saw in her RIZIN debut and big upset over Kana Sakura, which launched her into the top 5. I mean, she'll strike you up from anywhere. So the bottom, like I said, probably going to hit Miyu with a couple of those. Miyu can land some knees if she gets side control, whatever. I think it's really, really going to come down to that. Unless Miyu decides, and this is what she should do, for her safest path to victory, she should wrestle defensively. Which is a weird thing for her probably instinctually to even think about, and she probably won't. But what she should do is use her wrestling as a defensive tool to keep Oshima off of her and away from her, whatever it may be. As the screen appears to be doing something, we'll take it off. Sorry. That ruined my train of thought, but oh man, I've totally lost it. She should, yes, defensive wrestle to keep her off, and then try and, do damage on the feet, because Miyu has gradually improved her striking. And, we saw a little bit of that against Ayaka in the brief moments there, landed some leg kicks and whatnot. She's got, her hands have gotten better and better over time, because she came in to MMA completely as a wrestler. So, and my goodness, Oshima really showed some serious issues walking into punches against Hime in her loss 2 fights ago before the Suda win. So unless she's fixed that up, she cannot just run into punches. I mean, ever again, really. But if she's going to continue to fight that way, then Miyu should try and not go to the ground with her and beat her up on the feet, because they'll be given to her those opportunities. So it's weird to say that, but I think that Miyu's best chance is actually on the feet in this one. Not that she cannot nullify submission attempts and threats from Saori, but Saori is just a freaking killer, man. When she, again, like Saka and similar to Suda, too, these fighters who find their windows, jump through it, fully jump through it, capitalize, take an arm home, whatever it may be. As we're getting the dry throat here at the end. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this, because I know that Miyu is not going to fight the way I'm saying to. And kind of, why would you? You have that confidence in your lifetime of grappling and wrestling specifically. To go away from it sounds dumb in the head of that person. So why do it? Well, because you don't need to. Then you're risking things. But hey. Oh, too kind. Sammy. James says, hey, Miyu Yamamoto, but will it be as good as Hamasaki versus Oshima? Is that what he means? Yes, I see that there. Unlikely. Those obviously were both very, very crazy fights. I mean, could be. It's very compelling, though. I think if it has potential to be very good, but Go says, James, nothing is going to be as good as that fight. Starflower was using the pedigree to land knees on Hamasaki. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, I mean, tough one to top. But Ru says, Oshima is slick underneath and has good up kicks. Absolutely. That's why I'm saying, like, the position Miyu will want to be in is on top. But that's all. That's not exactly where she want to be in this case. So I think she should just try to keep it standing. Why not? As best as you can. And seeing her off her back is not something we've seen really, I can remember ever so much, but hasn't done too much from there. Hasn't needed to. And Ghost says, the pedigree is a double stockade position for pro wrestling. Do you like that, Drake? Yes, that's hilarious. I appreciate that. Shout out to Triple H. And Jin says, do you think Oshima will use the Kimura trap that Hamasaki did against Miyu? Wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, hey, Jin, if you did not see Saori versus Morisuda, it is on YouTube now, Deep Jewel's channel. She pretty much did the same thing there. Obviously didn't finish it in a with the leg scissors, right? But she caught Mori that same way and worked from there to get the finish. So Saori's already kind of done that before, and she is trained with Ayaka, obviously. So yeah, it is certainly possible. I would not be stunned. That's the thing. Miyu shoots in for a takedown. Even then, she's in danger. So we'll see. I'm glad you highlighted that. And Rain says, Miyu is amazing. She's 60 years old and a fantastic wrestler. Absolutely true. Jimmy says, both are good grapplers. Do you think the striking will make a big difference? That's what I'm saying. Yes, I think that from what we've seen, at least recently, definitely recently, Oshima's defense has just been really bad. It has been very bad, and I think that Miyu has the has the edge there. So, yeah, like I said, to limit your risks, I would strike if I was Miyu. And Go says, I haven't studied Yamamoto, but about the Hamasaki fight is Yamamoto good entering with boxing into takedowns. Yeah, typically she's good at kind of punching her way in, and she's kind of one of those fighters. She's very similar, I think, to Chael in the sense that you typically know what she's always going to do. It's just a matter of when that takedown's coming, right? So if she can kind of switch that up, like I'm saying, and make you think maybe not, but fake with it, then she can do some real damage there. But yeah, typically she's done pretty good with that. And Sam says, do you think it would be a good idea for Oshima to take Miyu down, or should Oshima just work off her back? So that's a good question and interesting kind of perspective there, Sammy. I don't think it would hurt, and I'm not going to say it's surprising because I'm sure Miyu is expecting that, and that's how I think it's going to play out. Because you look at Sayori does the same thing pretty much every time, but she's just so aggressive with how she tries to get to the ground, even if it means being on her back, where she's fine from. So that's how we're gonna see. That's gonna happen at some point, right? Hear me out. But to get on top of Miyu, I think she's fine in either position, really. Like, which one is she better off from? Might be her back. It really might be, but Sayori can work from both and threaten with submissions from anywhere. And Miyu, honestly, is not a finisher whatsoever. She's never finished anybody. So, yeah, it feels weird to say that she won't have the advantage, but to say that Miyu won't have the advantage, and she does in terms of control and all that, and I think she can, but we've seen her caught, all this kind of stuff. So it's a very interesting matchup with these elements. And Rain says, is this cage a ring? This is the ring. RIZIN only does the cage for the trigger events. And Ghost says, is she good at passing and changing positions on the ground? Yes, she typically is. She can get pretty comfortable in position sometimes, which is also a scare for her here. But yeah, like I said, when she gets in side control, she can do some serious damage. You look back at the Reina fight. Yeah. And Ghost says, because in the Hamasaki fight, she was just getting styled on from position to position. So that's why I ask. Yeah, I mean, hey, that was just the glory of Hamasaki, though. Just, man, what a performance. Maybe her best. That was just so absolutely beautiful. And Jen says, what's the difference between trigger and normal RIZIN events? Just the cage, really. Just the cage. Cage for the trigger events, ring for the other one, for landmark and the numbered series. But the trigger events, that's it pretty much. Smaller location. They're pretty much like the RIZIN fight nights pretty much. And then the landmark series is a RIZIN fight night as well, except they're only like 5 fights and the ring. So they're giving you a little bit of everything these days. It's really fun. But all right, you guys, we've gone overtime. I didn't expect to, but man, I always get so caught up talking about the atom weights. Looking forward to that fight. So that is RIZIN 36, though, you guys. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. My, oh my, we have a stacked weekend of lineup, an international fight week of action. Good stuff there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you were new or this was a reoccurring visit for you, appreciate you all the same. It really does mean the world. Do not forget to hit that like button. Really helps us out so much here at MMA Mania. Subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. Tell a friend to tell their friends. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. You know how it goes. As for the shameless plugs, I already told you, Raw Horizon episode 16 is coming out soon, within the hour, with Mori Suda, Karumi Khan, Hiroki Suzuki, and Ji Young Yang. 3 of those are fighting this weekend at the card, as we talked about Suda, of course. As I said, we'll be speaking to Jessie Jess this week, so give me some questions if you would like for her. Juliana Pena recently, the champ. And I think a couple others. Oh, I did speak to Sarah McMahon for the first time, too. That was a really fun one. That'll be dropping in a couple weeks before her fight with Aspen Ladd. So that was great. I really enjoyed talking to Sarah. So got some good stuff coming, as always, you guys. But that will do it. Appreciate you guys, seriously. And I will see you next time at the same time every Monday. All right. Enjoy the weekend, you guys. Peace out.